ready for the time of your life at Circa Resort and Casino, Las Vegas's newest destination for fun, featuring the world's biggest poolside tailgate party with 3 levels of action, 6 pools, and a 143-foot screen. The fun is always on deck with all the games all year long. Stadium Swim, located in downtown Las Vegas on Fremont Street. Book the time of your life today at circalasvegas.com.
Hey, Forrest here. Nothing like getting paid. And with ICCU's mobile app, I can deposit checks or accept Zelle payments so the money hits my account fast. I just wish there was an app for mowing the rest of these lawns.
It's Truck Month. It's our favorite month of the year at Lithia Ford of Boise. Time to pick up savings, pick up power, pick up fun. And the best place to pick up yours? Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
When I want Boise State to win, I trust Coach Rice to lead the Broncos to victory.
And when I want the best painting and garage floor coating, I trust rowpaint.com to get that job done right.
It's time for Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny. From what's happening on the blue at Boise State to the Mountain West and beyond. The biggest storylines, the best guests, and most outlandish opinions from 2 dudes who eat, sleep, and breathe college football. Today's broadcast is coming from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of pre-mixed premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Canned Cocktails is perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny, featuring former Boise State quarterback and longtime coach Mike Sanford and KTIK 95.3 FM The Ticket's Johnny Mallory on Bronco Nation News.
Oh, BJ, I need you to send me that guitar solo on the Ball Talk intro because I want every time the Sandman to call me, I want that to be the ringtone. Appreciate everybody hanging out. It's Ball Talk Spring Edition, final episode 6. Coach Sanford on the far side of the screen. We got BJ Range joining us of BNN fame as well, and figured we talk spring game, NFL draft, some news around the NFL. Coach can give his final mic drop, and we're off rolling. Coach, how we doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Just excited to do our I'm excited and I'm sad that we're doing our final episode of Ball Talk of spring, just to make that very clear. We will be back. We signed a huge contract. I mean, I'm talking mega bucks for the fall. So Ball Talk will be back.
You're not supposed to say that, are you?
Well, I think there was it was met with the understanding of full sarcasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we're excited to bring you more Ball Talk come fall. We'll announce our first show, but it's been really fun to do this even this part of the year. And just, I think that Johnny, it's been a fun journey of getting updated myself out of town with what has been happening and transpiring in spring ball. And that's why I'm so excited to have the man, the myth, the legend, BJ Raines is physically with us here on Ball Talk to wrap up some spring game thoughts. So I have some questions for you, BJ. I wasn't there. 2 of you guys were there. I wish I could have been there.
Yeah, we missed you.
But had some things transpiring here in the Denver area. And had a softball tournament that I'm coaching. I'm the dang head coach. And of course,
you're not going anywhere, coach. Yeah.
As things played out, it got canceled anyway. So I should have been in Boise. There you have it. But so BJ, just first off, just what were your impressions in terms of how people that you've watched all spring, players that you've watched all spring, how they responded to being in front of a crowd, a good crowd, What were some of your thoughts on the spring game?
Well, I first want to just say thank you to both of you guys. It's been fun to have you guys do ball talk. Johnny's picked up the producing role, so even some of the shows he's been doing everything himself, and it's been kind of weird and surreal to be having a show on BNN that I'm not even a part of, and it's been kind of cool to have you guys step up and do this, and the insight has been great. So I'm right there with you, Mike, that it's sad this is the last episode for the season, but very excited about next year and bringing this thing back. And we got your guys' show, and I know Riley and Rid are having fun doing their show. We're continuing to try to add some evening programs, to BNN. We got the Tyson Degenhardt show tomorrow night. So it's been fun. I appreciate you guys for doing this for very limited to no pay. And it's been fun. And so thank you to both of you guys. Wanted to get that out of the way first and hope you're having fun doing this because I know everyone's loving having you on. It was, Mike, you know how it is. Scrimmage 2 was way more important than the spring game. The fans get a chance to see the spring game, but overall, scrimmage 2, scrimmage 1, the behind the scenes stuff, the actual practices were much more, important, much more valuable to guys like Johnny and I and to the coaches. And there were a lot of guys. You talk about the all spring team, whether it was Johnny, like a Jake Ripp at linebacker, Sire Gaines at running back, Kyle Cox, Hall Schmidt at right tackle, Matt Lauder at tight end, Chase Penry, I think, at receiver. There's been some names that keep popping up over and over again in terms of guys that have really stepped up this spring. So the spring game itself, I don't take a lot from because it was very base offense. You had so many starters not even out there. Certainly Malachi made a couple nice throws. You notice CJ Tiller was only 3 of 9, so you wonder kind of where he is at on the depth chart. I think he's a clear third behind Maddox and Malachi, and I'm sure you guys will get into this, but what that means for him and his future here and that pecking order at quarterback going into the fall. But the receivers, there's a lot of them. Running backs, there's a lot of them. Tight ends, O-line. I think what I took away was we all thought this offense had a chance to be really good, and if they're all healthy and I think this offense is going to be really, really good. And so a lot of excitement, a lot of reasons to be, if you're a fan, be excited, have some optimism going into the summer. I don't think there's a lot of weak links on this team, whether it's defense, special teams, offense. I think there's reasons to be excited about all of them. So I kind of rambled there, but I would just say, a lot of players stepped up, a lot of positions are really deep, and I think this team has a chance to be really good this fall.
I think what was cool, if I was a diehard super Boise State fan and I keep track of the spring game and I want certain players to do well, I think I would be happy. Latrell Caples led the spring game in catches and yards. That's exactly what Boise State fan wants. And one of 3 Malachi kind of splash throws, big play throws, big yardage throws was to Latrell Caples. So I would be really happy that, look, Trell looks ready to go. Trell looks like he's going to be an all-conference Mountain West receiver like Boise State has had on so many other seasons. Looks like he's next up. Prince Strawn also made a couple of great catches. The catch on the sideline, BJ, was probably the play of the day, maybe the pass of the day, probably the catch of the day as well. And, sky's the limit with Prince Strawn, right? That's how you want him to look. And so I would be excited that, okay, Prince Strawn is making plays out there. Yeah, run the clip there, BJ. But that's the Gabe Hunter pick. That was a heck of a play too. Good to see him back and playing well. But yeah, the guys that I wanted to see do well did well. Sire Gaines looks like a beast, man. He looks like a freight train. So in that regard, cool. Defense, I don't know what you can take away really from a spring game. Defensively, I mentioned the Hunter interception. I know they got 5 sacks. Coach Sanford, spring game sacks. I don't know what those weigh. So yeah, all in all, the defense won the point system of the scrimmage. But that's what I would take away if I was a diehard BSU fan. And then look at that shiftiness. Look at the suddenness of Genty. As you know, Coach, you've coached running backs at one of the highest possible levels. The feet, the vision, the fluidity. You just love watching the great ones run, whether it's 5 yards or 75 yards. And you got to see Ashton Genty there before he came up a little short, limping on that hamstring. It felt like, BJ, it looked like, but he'll be ready to go, obviously. But yeah, all in all, actually a pretty exciting game for spring game standards, guys. Spring games are awful, man. They put you to sleep, but this one had some moments.
So were the quarterbacks live in the spring game? Because I see they were wearing the same jerseys the rest of the offense, or was there a quick whistle?
The third quarter, they actually were. At least one of them, I think it might have been CJ, got pushed down to the ground. The first half, nobody was live. They didn't even do full tackle the first half, so Ashton could play. It was a thud or wrap in the first half. Third quarter was live, and the quarterbacks in the third quarter, I believe, were live, yes.
What were some of your takeaways, BJ, from just watching the comfort level of Malachi in the pocket? Just in terms of just, did he seem comfortable? Did he set his feet? Was he able to get through his reads? Did he look crisp? What were some of the things that you saw from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, not just in this game, Johnny, but I mean, Mike, into this whole 15 practices, I think Johnny would agree, but I'm not sure there was a player that made more improvement, at least in my eyes, in the 15 practices. I mean, that first practice, we saw him dropping snaps. He just was throwing interceptions where there was nobody within 30 yards of him. I mean, I thought the first practice, and we kind of had to slow the expectations, Johnny. We're like, okay, it's going to be a process for Malachi here. This might take a while. He's not as ready as we all thought. And then by practice 15, and maybe in particular like 13, I think was the big one that we saw, Johnny, where he was just threading the needle, throwing some dimes. And I think that the improvement he made from 1 to 15, I thought was a massive improvement. Me and Johnny were both down the field for the first half of the spring game, and then I went up to the box for the second half. But I thought he looked pretty, comfortable and confident, and just looked, much more in command of things than maybe he was earlier in the spring. But in terms of just the spring game itself, I don't know if I'd take away a ton just from that. But in terms of his improvement from practice 1 to practice 15, Johnny, I think you would agree. I thought he made massive improvement.
I talked to Bruce Feldman. I think he's now with Fox Sports. He was with ESPN before, but I saw him at this combine, and we spent a lot of time talking about Malachi Nelson. Bruce Feldman lives in Los Angeles, is very close to the USC program, and I just asked him for his scouting report. This was, before spring ball even really started. And he said that, he went to, Feldman himself went to multiple practices summer, during the season at SC. And he said that, Malachi didn't practice much. He wasn't out there much. He wasn't even running the scout team. And I know he had some shoulder stuff that he was working through. So you got to think about it. These weren't just his first practices, really for all intents and purposes as a Boise State Bronco quarterback. These were his first practices of college football. I mean, at least that sustained over a 15-day period of time, or 15 practice period of time where he was getting a lot of reps. So it's good to see that. It's good to hear that. That's something that I was concerned about when I talked to Bruce Feldman. That was something that he had said, like, I think it's going to take a while probably for him to even feel comfortable. And I think the fact that he was able to feel as comfortable as he was to look like a very high functioning quarterback, at least in the spring game, I think that bodes very well for Boise State. I think it bodes well for the quarterback competition. Maddox Madsen certainly sitting over there in the corner, just licking his chops, ready to go compete in the fall. And I know he already got a ton of reps and everything but true 11 on 11, move the ball or tackle football. So I think it's going to be a really good competition. I think that a lot of people don't expect it to be that, but I think at the end of the day, I really do believe that it's going to be a good competition.
Man, I think, and I was trying to compare this because since I moved back to Boise, guys, 2020, when I spent 4 or 5 years in Oregon before that, and every single year there's like a quarterback competition at some point in the season. And I'm trying to map, okay, what's this one going to be like? Malachi versus Mad Dog. And, it's different in so many ways. And I'm just thinking, wow, this might be the stiffest one of all of them. I mean, this might be.
What about Zabransky Sanford, man? Come on.
That's up there. But yeah, man, I mean, I think it's going to be close. I can't wait to cover it. My take, Malachi, he was on the show. We did our spring awards. Malachi Nelson was my most improved player in the entire thing for the whole camp. I thought, I think you could put him in a game right now, coach, and he's not going to blow the whole thing up. And this about college football. There's a lot of quarterbacks you just can't put into a game, coach. They're going to blow the whole thing up. And I think Malachi, it just seemed like he just felt comfortable. I guess that was the word I'll use. He was just comfortable out there, making his throws. Obviously, you can see the arm talent. I mean, the throw to Prince on the sideline, I was right by that throw, right next to your boy Grant Hedrick. And, my jaw drops. I look over at Grant. his jaws drop, and he looked at me. He was like, okay, yeah. That kid can throw. Like it was just like quarterback to quarterback, speaking the language, saw the whole play develop, and Hendrick was like, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's a very, very high level throw right there and catch by the receiver. But I thought Malachi was, I don't know how he could have had trying to think, he could have had a better spring game in a sense where it was more efficient. But I don't know how he could have had a better spring game as far as like big, mega splash highlight type of plays, especially for the people there, where just it was really exciting for people in the stands. It's going to be a hell of a competition, BJ, and yeah, he's just improved greatly, and it's going to be a fun competition. I really don't know what else to say, man. Malachi did everything to make Mad Dog sweat on the sidelines a little bit, thinking, okay, Malachi's getting better. Here we go.
There was a lot of talk, too, about Tiller and his improvement this spring, and we talked to him. You guys had him on your show, Johnny, and I really thought Tiller, and it said, that in the middle of the spring, okay, Tiller has helped himself. He's going to be a part of this competition. And then he goes 3 of 9, throws 1 pick, could have had a second pick, which it was picked off, but they ruled a sack before he threw the ball. So he had 2 picks, essentially, only passed for 17 yards, got sacked twice.
Longest completion was 9 yards.
And I'm trying.
He completed. It just wasn't a good day for our man CJ. I get you.
No, and I know, Mike. Like, you can't put too much stock into one open practice of the 15. So I'm probably putting too much into it. But my mind kind of changed just in general the last couple practices with what Malachi has done, his improvement with the maybe what CJ didn't do in the last practice or two, and in particular the spring game. And then just with we know Maddox Madsen's going to be in the mix here because Dirk Cutter really likes him and what he did last year. So I see this as a two quarterback race right now. I see CJ Tiller and I don't know if distance the right word, but I think he's certainly a step behind those two. I was coaching Little League Baseball the last couple hours. I haven't seen if he's entered the transfer portal or anything, Johnny, but I mean, I think that, that's something certainly to look at is what he decides to do. I just see CJ Tiller as third right now. I don't know how you see it, Johnny and Mike, but I think that quarterback battle is probably, maybe they try to say it's 3, but in all seriousness, it's a 2-team race going into the fall.
Yeah, I would say this. I would say that you don't ever want to put too much stock into a spring game from the standpoint of like, you don't know who was working with the first unit, who was going against the first defense and you're with the second and third string offense. Like that is something that as a coach, when you're grading the film, you have to take into account.
Sure.
A lot of times the spring game is teed up a little bit for, a guy that certainly came in with all the hype in the world at Boise State and Malachi Nelson. You want to make sure he has a positive first impression. Like I've done that. I've made those decisions. I've Rocky Hines at UNLV, the first time that we had him in front of the fans, he was transferring in from USC, and we wanted to make sure that he felt comfortable. He looked good because it's important that you don't start the dialogue in the offseason that this guy's a bust already. And so I think it's important. And so you don't know what that went into. And CJ Tiller is a guy that I think is the ultimate professional. I think he's a guy that's going to handle this thing with class. And I also think that, the body of work over 15 practices, the public knows one practice, 1/15 of the equation, if you will. So I would personally put too much stock in the fact that he was 3 of 9. It sounds like a very normal spring game for a guy that was probably running with the 2 offense against the number 1 defense. And frankly, you can't, I don't think you can ascertain what this thing's going to necessarily be. You guys did have the benefit of being in person for a majority or a good chunk of the practices. So you did see some of the different things that the fan didn't see.
Yep. We saw certain days he was the best quarterback out there. Yep. Right. More of those days were earlier than later, but he more than held his own, and he's going to be a redshirt freshman, 4 years. I mean, I don't know what the portal does for kids in CJ's situation. You missed spring. You're going to go somewhere, try to assimilate into a locker room and be leader. I'm happy to be here, guy, during off season and PRPs and all that stuff. And then you still have to win a job. Those aren't easy. There's several other quarterbacks in that room that are pissed off that you're coming in, and it's not really a good situation, as opposed to, hey, you stay here, It's your redshirt freshman year. Chill out, man. Wait and see what happens here. You've already started a game. You know this system. Dirk Cutter likes you. You love Coach D and vice versa. Look, if Malachi really pops this year and Boise State does what everybody wants him to do, Malachi's going to be playing at Bama the following year for, I don't know, $4-5 million, the going rate at that point. Mad Dog will be inserted back as a junior at that point. CJ Tiller would be a sophomore. You're back to QB2. You're snap away at that point. I wish more kids would look at it that way, especially when you're early on in your eligibility. You're going to have the same problems, I think, even multiplied at the new place, especially when you're like CJ. In CJ's case, he knows everybody, a very popular player there. It sucks that he might be QB3, but heck, Boise State started how many quarterbacks last year?
Hey,
3.
Johnny, I think you need to slow your roll a little bit, to be really honest. Like, even if he has all that success, think about it. He already left the ultimate West Coast blue blood program to go find a place that he feels comfortable in. So I wouldn't put the cart before the horse and make this solely a fiscal decision. At the end of the day, if he's having success at Boise State, if what you said, which is what I think a lot of people in Boise are expecting, is for Malachi Nelson to win this job. He's more talented. We can all argue. I don't think you can argue that Maddox is more talented, just as a gifted passer. He might be tougher. I don't know. He might be grittier. He might be the ultimate, competitor, the gritty guy. But you can't probably argue the talent level. I think that both Scout 247 and Rivals would probably have a word with you if you said that Maddox Madsen's as talented on paper. So in the event that you get a Malachi Nelson going out and having success, his first success in college football, having left USC, I think that he finds a comfort of being in a program where he feels like he can just be a normal dude. He doesn't have to be in the massive spotlight of being the quarterback at Alabama. And I do think that his personality, from what I've heard, it lends itself to wanting to be just a guy that goes and goes to work and plays football, doesn't have to deal with a whole lot of the other stuff. And I think that lines up with him, being at Boise State for a long time.
And it'll be a great problem for everybody to have, right?
Yeah.
If that's the decision that it comes down to next year. Obviously, hopefully Malachi's the guy, or whoever wins the job for at least the next 2 years. And it's weird to think about it, guys. Mad Dog's only a sophomore this year. He's a redshirt sophomore. His 3rd year in the program. Like, these guys all have a lot of eligibility left.
And I'll just throw in the fact that we had Malachi Nelson's dad on our pregame show with Riddle and Bedell and myself on Saturday. We missed you at the James, Sanford. We were out there in our corner spot.
There were some glorious memories that happened that evening against New Mexico, both pregame and postgame. Mostly postgame. That was kind of a little wild there.
That was a fun night, guys.
And then the following morning at about 9 a.m. when they made a coaching change. It was not quite as many beverages were flown at noon on a Saturday as they were that weekend, but it was a fun time. We had Malachi Nelson's dad on, Eric Nelson, and I thought, he just said all the right stuff. He is basically, that was his first time speaking, and we haven't even heard from Malachi Nelson since he hasn't talked yet since he came to Boise State. But I thought his dad, and if anybody wants to go back to the pregame show, it started about 12 minutes in. You can listen to Eric Nelson. He's a pastor at a local church, and he just talked about his relationship with Coach D, and he talked about just his, the type of player Malachi is going to be. And I just had a better, I don't know if appreciation's the right word, but I think I just, realized that I think Malachi's got the right, system in place here, and, with his dad and stuff to really have his head on the shoulders right and be thinking mentally the right about this. So you mentioned, Mike, just him wanting to go somewhere and do all this. I think that was, kind of echoed by what his dad said in terms of just what they're looking for and why they came to Boise State and some of the other factors that were into that. So I think Malachi's in the right spot mentally for this, and now we'll just see if the talent is there. And there was a question in here about the summer and kind of what goes on from here. Mike, you can answer this, obviously, and Johnny, not trying to take over his hosting here, but the summer, the coaches, I don't even know what they can do now. It's a little different than it used to be, Mike, in terms of in terms of what the coaches can do. But what does the evaluation period do now between now and August 1st in terms of this quarterback battle here?
Well, this is good news for Boise State. It's good news for Malachi Nelson for his continued development because the rules changed dramatically over the last 10 years. When I was a player at Boise State, the coaches pretty much just gave us over to the strength coach, Jeff Pittman, and said, hey, we'll see you when we get started in August. I mean, that was what we did for June and July. It was voluntary workouts. I mean, that's what we did. It was just, it was player-led practices, but even then it was more just throwing sessions after our, evening run. Nowadays, I mean, coaches, when I was at CU, I coached like 16, 20 practices in June and July. I mean, I was there, just running practice. You're allowed to be out there. The NCAA is allowed for X amount of hours per week, meeting time, and then on-field time. Essentially, once the 11 on 11 type stuff happens, that's got to be, obviously there's no pads, but you've got to make sure the coaching staff's not there for a true 11 on 11. But coaches can be out there running drills. They can do formational type work. So you basically get practices. You get 2 a week. Some places do as much as 3 a week, and then you have meeting sessions. So you don't necessarily get the film work. That is illegal. I think that there's some schools that probably do film those summer practices, and then go review that film with the players. Yeah. But I think it's a really beneficial time to get more work and follow up what you did in spring. And to be honest, the state of college football, this is actually a complete necessary beast. It's made the life of a college football coach an absolute grind in June, July, and August. You don't really have any time off. If you take, a 3 weeks of vacation, you feel like you're doing something wrong and you're getting behind. So, you get into that awkward time where the head coach says, oh, you have a 4 week vacation, and then kind of gives you the wink, wink. And, these practices are optional as long as one offensive coach is covering them. And everybody just thinks about what's Alabama doing right now? What's Nevada Reno doing right now with Jeff Choate, who just came from Texas? They're probably coaching their ever living tails off. So there's no vacation time anymore. And, the month of June is such a wild month because you still have these satellite camps and you travel around as a coach from satellite camp to satellite camp. You're going.
They still do that, huh?
Oh, yeah. Man. Yeah. I mean, I guess the people that still recruit high school athletes do. And I sure as heck know Boise State coaches, recruits.
Yeah, they're all going to Texas for a camp in early June. I know that. And they got California and maybe even Washington. So yeah, they got some in June for sure.
Yeah. And so you're traveling to these camps, sometimes on a private jet. I've done that quite a bit where you're, private jet to that camp first thing in the morning, and then you're flying back, and next day you're with your players, coaching them up on the field. So it is the month of June is the absolute biggest grind in all of college football. And you're also you're finalizing all your portal. You're in some schools like CU right now. I mean, I think they're up to 24 players that have already left the roster, entered the portal from this period. They haven't even played their spring game yet. Their spring game is this coming Saturday. And
wow,
they have
left before the spring game.
24 players since January, in the new portal, have already entered. And that's not even including who left in December and January. So you're gonna spend your entire summer just getting your roster to where you need to get it to be competitive in the fall. Meanwhile, you're also trying to get those players in school. You're trying to make sure that they have all their housing set, but then you got to start coaching them too. It's a different world. Summer used to be June and July was like, you didn't see the coaches. Now you see the dang coaches all the time. You're kind of sick of them. I miss the old days. I think there was a team building, a team bonding that happened in the summer when there was ownership taken by the players to run practice. And nowadays it's just, it's the nuclear arms race of college football. Who can put in more time in June and July with your current roster? And I think that's what's happening. And that's what I expect will happen in Boise this summer.
Yeah, man, keeping those rosters. I mean, I think your roster has all this turnover and fall camp's going to start, and you just haven't had the time you need to work with these teams. And then the season probably starts so quickly for some of these coaches. I mean, I wanted to ask BJ first and, coach, your opinion too, but back to the, wrap up the spring and the quarterback situation. I think I don't know, BJ. I think if I had to put money on it right now, I think all three quarterbacks we talked about are in fall camp. Would you agree with that? Or do you think one of them ends up leaving?
They probably all stay. I mean, in this day and age in the transfer portal, you just never know. But you mentioned the age of a CJ Tiller and also just the way that the fact that he said in December he never thought about leaving. Even when they brought in Malachi, never thought about leaving. I don't know why that would just suddenly change right now. He just seems like the kind of guy that wants to stay here and has a lot of friends and wants to try to fight it out for a spot. Maybe he has a different conversation with the coaching staff for this week and finds out that he's got no chance and maybe decides to move on, or they tell him to move on. I have no idea, but I would he would be the only one. I don't think Maddox or Malachi obviously aren't going to be here. So I think that I'll agree with you. All three probably are here this year, but I would say all three probably still aren't here the next year.
And you probably feel pretty good, even if that does happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but you feel pretty good. I mean, Cole he's been growing a lot. The walk-on quarterback has looked pretty dang good all spring from what I've seen, and seems like he's fully invested and bought in. And he's a southpaw, huh? The lefty.
Yeah, the pride of Santa Margarita. Sanford.
One thing that I think about when you evaluate the CJ Tiller situation, you got to think about it. If CJ Tiller's leaving and the reason for him leaving would be solely for playing time, he's going to have to transfer somewhere that's not on the level of Boise State as a program, the prestige of Boise State. You're probably to be at least have a chance at being a starting quarterback. You're probably going to have to go FCS. That's probably reality.
Exactly.
Because you have one game film, and it's not the kind of game film that would necessarily warrant a starting job, even at a Group of 5 level. You probably get brought in maybe to compete with somebody else at a lesser program than Boise State. Is that really what you want to do? If I'm CJ Tiller, and what I've seen from him, I respect the heck out of him. I think he's got a lot of growth ahead of him. I think he's going to be a really good player. Sometimes you just got to almost see how this thing plays out with 1 and 2. However, 1 and 2 settle between Malachi and Maddox Madsen, and one maybe leaves from then. Maybe both. Maybe you have a situation similar to last year where it's there's an inevitability of 2 quarterbacks playing and both guys are pissed because the other guy's playing. So you just never know. I think that the wise move would be for CJ Tiller to play the long game.
I'm with you guys. Ball talk. BJ, do you want to let's wrap spring up. Let's get to the NFL draft a little bit, Coach. I'm just going to start you off real quick. How many quarterbacks get drafted in the first round?
5. I really do believe it's going to be 5. I think that the first quarterback off the board is obviously it's so clear. It's Caleb Williams. I don't have him ranked as my number 1 quarterback in this draft class. I have Jaden Daniels. I think that Jaden Daniels loves the game of football. He's the ultimate competitor, and he gives you more immediate pop as a dynamic player than Caleb Williams. He can run. He's a 4.40 guy. He's created with his legs. He's a pinpoint accuracy player. He's played in West Coast NFL-style offenses, both at Arizona State and even at LSU with Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator there. I really like Jaden Daniels. So I think there's no way that Jaden Daniels doesn't go 2 over Drake May. Drake May is a big, I think he's the most controversial. There's so many hot take artists on Drake May, both on the side that he is number 1 in this draft class. And my take is that he's got the most development. He's got to go into the best possible situation. So I think Drake May could be a guy that does end up sliding. I don't know for sure that Washington Commanders end up staying at 2, because I think there were some signs that were given out by Jaden Daniels that he doesn't necessarily want to play in Washington. I think he'd love to play somewhere, where he might have a better situation that could be successful. So I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody trade into the 2 spot, and knowing that the Commanders could hang around, end up moving back up and get in the J.J. McCarthy discussion or even the Drake May discussion, because I think they are high on him. I do believe that Drake May will be off the board in the top 10 picks. And then J.J. McCarthy, I think there's still a chance where he could be QB3 drafted in this draft. And I think those first 4 guys that I just mentioned they're going to be off the board by 10. They might be off the board by 5. There are a lot of quarterback-starved NFL franchises right now that need to show some hope to their fan bases. And I think this is a very quarterback-rich class. All 5 of them, and the 5th one I'm going to get into is Michael Penix Jr. I think that Michael Penix Jr. is, without if you take the injury history out of it, Michael Penix Jr. is the best pocket manipulator and the best downfield thrower in this draft class, the most accurate downfield thrower. And so in Oakland Raiders, who are now the Las Vegas Raiders, I think that they could pick him. I think that the Raiders would have a Devontae Williams as a vertical threat and Michael Penix Jr. pushing the ball down the field. That could be something to watch for some years to come, which would be very bad news here in the Denver area for the Broncos. So I think that either at 13, the Raiders could go and get Michael Penix Jr. I do know that their new head coach, Antonio, I'm drawing a blank. Antonio Pierce. I was thinking Price for some reason. Antonio Pierce. He has familiarity with him. He's coached in the Pac-12 at Arizona State. He knows about him. I think that there would be some great fit right there between an Antonio Pierce and a Michael Penix Jr. And I think the Denver Broncos, they went out and got, Zach Wilson, which we'll get into here in a second. I think that's changed a little bit about, the desire for them to draft a Bo Nix at 12. Bo Nix, from an arm talent perspective, from his combine performance, which I was up, in the second, third row watching him throw the football. He threw every ball right before or right after J.J. McCarthy, and there was a massive drop-off in terms of the way the ball jumped out of Bo Nix's hand compared to the way the ball was zinging out of J.J. McCarthy's hand. And then the next group of quarterbacks, Michael Penix Jr., put on the show of all shows. So just purely as a passer, you can't put Bo Nix in that category of being an NFL-ready passer from an arm strength perspective. So I do think he slides to the second, and it wouldn't even surprise me if he slides to the third.
Denver is interesting, and I want to get your thoughts on the Zach Wilson trade and get your background on Zach Wilson and what you've talked about with coaches. And let's get that, BJ, after a quick word from BNN sponsors.
Yeah, I want to thank a couple of sponsors here, then let you guys continue the discussion. Cutwater Spirits, more than 35 flavors of premix premium cocktails. You can pick one up at your local gas station or grocery store. Our title sponsor is rowpaint.com. Whether it's the concrete coatings, the interior, exterior painting of your home, residential, commercial, industrial, you name it, all your painting needs, make sure to check out rowpaint.com. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Tyson Degenhart will make an announcement about his future plans for next season. The NBA draft early deadline is on Thursday. Keep that in mind. Tyson Degenhart, Idaho Central Credit Union, the sponsor of his show. Check them out, iccu.com. Make sure you join us at 8 p.m. for the Tyson Degenhart Show presented by ICCU tomorrow night. Lithia Ford of Boise, lithiafordboise.com. You can view their full inventory of vehicles. They have four NIL deals with football players, 6 total now that they've added Jonah Dalmas. So they're supporting the Boise State football team, and they're driving their rigs. And so you can return the favor. Go purchase your next vehicle from Lithia Ford of Boise. And again, view that full inventory online ahead of time at lithiafordboise.com. Taco Bell, if you need a job, TacoBellWorks.com. They are hiring. And how about this? They'll give you half your pay the very next day after your shift, and you get free food while you work. So check them out, TacoBellWorks.com. And again, the SON Management Group, the Nicolason family, we appreciate their support of Bronco Nation News, and it's great food. So get over there and check out Taco Bell. And, of course, the Blue and Orange Store. Whether it's shirts, caps, jerseys, hats, you name it, they got it all at the Blue and Orange Store. Travis Auction Company, we appreciate them. So right there at the Boise Town Square Mall, or second floor on next to Pro Image, or $40 of an order online gets you free shipping at the blueandorange.store.com. So appreciate Johnny and Mike for letting me jump on. You guys can take it from here, and we'll be talking to you real soon.
Well done, BJ. Always appreciate the support from all the BNN sponsors, including Mike Sanford's favorite Bronco Brew Coffee. Do we have a mic drop coming later, Coach, or we
got a mic drop? I'm ready. I'm ready right now. And I this is what I got. All right. First off, the mic drop brought to you by Bronco Brew Coffee. Go online at Bronco Brew Coffee. You can Google it. You can find them on the socials, on Instagram, on Facebook, or on X. Bronco Brew Coffee is the greatest coffee coming out of any of the Northwest. Yeah, I put it up against Stumptown Coffee, Stumptown Roasters. I put them up against Pete's Coffee. They got great coffee. And you can also get a great cup of coffee while supporting some of your favorite Boise State athletes through the NIL Collective. And you can choose who you want those subscription dollars going to and what team. So go out and get yourself some Bronco Brew Coffee and get yourself a subscription and support your Boise State athletes. Mic drop, the final one of spring. All I got to say is this. Spring was a massive success for the Boise State Broncos. The offseason before that was a massive success for the Boise State Broncos. All arrows are pointing up. You go through a spring, you got out of spring, you get healthy. You're going to get the reserves that got their postseason surgeries in December and January. they're going to be back and ready to go in fall camp. You come out of spring completely healthy without any major injuries. You got a chance to watch some of your favorite Boise State Broncos play in a spring game and come out healthy. And not only that, you got to see the growth of the first 5-star quarterback in the history of the program, Malachi Nelson. You got to see the end product with your own eyes, and certainly it looks as advertised. The man can throw the football. The man can push the ball down the field. The wild throws are there. You got an elite group of receivers, the best running back in the country, a very experienced offensive line, and a defense that's ready to prove that last year at times was an absolute fluke. And I think that they have the experience and the veteran leadership on the defensive side of the ball to put together a very important season. I think this is going to be a really important offseason for Boise State, for the program, to just, tune out all the outside noise. But as a Boise State fan, you got a lot of really exciting things to look forward to this fall. And it's going to start with a trip, and not an easy trip, down to Georgia Southern. It's going to be a trip that Statesboro, Georgia doesn't exactly treat visitors all that well. The humidity and heat in the southern half of the state of Georgia isn't always so kind to people coming from the West Coast, coming from the thin air, the dry air. But I think Boise State's going to launch a campaign that'll be one that we'll remember for a long time. And frankly, it's been a while. It's been a while to have a Boise State season that I think it puts Boise State back on the national map. You have all the workings to do that. And I believe that this season, this team, that's the expectation going into this season, is that you have the talent, you've played your offseason well, you got out of spring healthy, and it's time to go get that spot. That spot, and when I'm talking about the spot, is I'm talking about the one that's up for grabs in the CFP playoffs. It's been expanded now. There's one for an automatic group of 5 entry, and that's got to be Boise State. Got the team to do it, got the fan base to do it, got the support to do it. Let's go out and do it. And I think it's going to happen. I believe that it's going to be a year that is going to be one for the ages, one for us to remember. And once you get into that playoffs, nobody wants to play Boise State. I know that. I've coached at programs where there's a chance that Boise State was going to be in one of those New Year's 6 bowl games. I didn't want to see Boise State as a Power 5 coach. So get into that position, keep doing the things the right way. That's exactly what this program's doing. And as fans, that's what I think that we all have those expectations. And I think they're just. I think that's what Boise State as a program is building for, and I'm excited for this season to start. Can't wait for our first Ball Talk episode to preview the season. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be an unbelievable 2024 going into 2025 campaign for the Boise State Broncos, and that is my final spring mic drop.
The Sandman, the mic drop, Bronco Brew Coffee. All right, Zach Wilson fascinates me. Okay. Dominates the COVID year, always had the arm talent, followed him closely through the draft process. Like I follow the draft. I think where you go absolutely matters. It might be the most important thing. Certain franchise, it feels like historically just F up quarterbacks. So there's that. Sean Payton, Denver, the quarterback room now led by Jarrett Stidham. This feels like the greatest possible situation that could have ever happened for Zach Wilson. I get a good quarterback coach. I don't have any real stiff competition. I'm pretty darn close to Salt Lake, at least in the NFL map. I wanted to know before we get into it, I guess, just what your background was, how close you paid attention. Did you recruit him, follow him in the draft? Just your thoughts. Zach Wilson with the Broncos interests me, Coach.
I'm actually excited about this move, and I know that Zach Wilson's become the butt of a lot of jokes for NFL meme makers. A lot of people want to say all the things that allegedly happened in his private life. Nobody knows that. In fact, I know a lot of people at BYU. I'm friends with a lot of people on the coaching staff, and a lot of the misinformation about Zach Wilson, frankly, it's not true. I know that to be of the utmost importance to him. I think that he gets branded as a certain type of person, certain type of player. I think that he's had some family members that have gotten into the spotlight at times and have made it a little bit tougher. But you got to think about it. Zach Wilson as a young player, you got to realize Zach Wilson right now is the same age as Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., which is mind-blowing when you think about it. Zach Wilson's coming to Denver, a very humbled player, but a very talented player. And he's a guy that has made
Is he? It wasn't fool's gold. He didn't fool everybody at the combine and the pro day and all that stuff.
You can pull the quote up here. I think I actually don't have producer power for some reason on this link like I usually do. I think PJ's cut me out, man.
Anyway,
but you can see that right there from Crash Helmy. Do you have that right there? It's about 6 comments up. Are you just a guest too, or you got to?
No, I can. Oh, sorry, man. I can look at the comments. Yeah, as a Jets fan, don't get your hopes up about Wilson. Ha ha ha! Right?
Yeah. I mean, here's what I would say. Here's what I'd say to the Jets organization. You're a dumpster fire. This is Zach Wilson has been in football hell.
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning today actually went on the airwaves here in Denver talking to Brandon Stokely and Josh Dover. It's actually
Stokely.
Oh, it's our competitor we're dominating. But anyway, it's not even close right now. The thing that Peyton Manning said is like, you don't want to be in that situation he was in at New York with the head coach, who I respect as a defensive mind. But Robert Saleh was meddling in the offensive stuff. He's not an offensive guy. I know he didn't learn offensive football solely because he was coaching under Kyle Shanahan.
He hired Nathaniel Hackett.
And so you got Zach Wilson who comes in and he has 3 different play callers in 3 years. And I guess it was an absolute disaster in the first year and a half that Zach Wilson was there. And then you bring in Nathaniel Hackett, which people in Denver know that wasn't a great situation either. Nathaniel Hackett plus Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay edition, awesome. But Nathaniel Hackett plus Zach Wilson or Nathaniel Hackett plus Russell Wilson, unmitigated disaster. So I think that he's got a chance to come into a situation in Denver where you have a clear-cut identity of what you want to be, both in your offensive schemes with Sean Payton and a quarterback mind. And Sean Payton, the guy that's developed the quarterback position, that is going to have clarity. He's going to be very black and white about exactly what he wants. I think his time in New York was littered with all kinds of just different viewpoints, different reads. Like on this, you're supposed to look at that. That was an absolute disaster for Zach Wilson. I think that he has got the chance to resuscitate his career. He's extremely talented. My brother-in-law,
How do you know the talent?
So my brother-in-law, who was at BYU in the 2020 season, then he left with Jeff Grimes. He's really close with Grimey. Went with Jeff Grimes. Went with him to Baylor. And then came back, and he's still at BYU. He's had a chance to keep in touch with Zach Wilson. My brother-in-law is a quarterback coach. He was my quarterback coach at Western Kentucky. He was with me at Notre Dame. So he's been around guys like Deshaun Kaiser, Mike White at Western Kentucky. He knows what an NFL quarterback, at least talent-wise, looks like. And he says Zach Wilson's on a different level than those guys talent-wise. He also said he's got a great processor. He sees stuff really well. He anticipates throws. And so he doesn't understand what happened in New York. I think I understand what happened in New York is that he had a lot of different voices in his ear about how to read things. And that's the absolute worst thing that could ever happen to a player in his early stages of development. So I think it's going to be a very similar move. And I could come under heat for this, but I really don't care. I think it's going to be a similar move to when Sean Payton in New Orleans went out and got Drew Brees from San Diego, and it's different because Drew Brees had some good film, had some good production.
He had made a Pro Bowl, I think, or 1 or 2. Sure.
But a lot of people thought Drew Brees was washed because of the arms, the surgery. He had a labrum tear. He had a reconstructive surgery in his shoulder, throwing shoulder. So I think that this actually ends up boding well for the Denver Broncos. They got a humbled quarterback, but a very talented quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I think Zach Wilson takes this thing and runs with it. The key for Zach Wilson is just don't come in and be cheesy in your first press conference. The Denver fans, all they want is authenticity. They didn't like dealing with Russell Wilson's Broncos country. Let's ride. They don't want to deal with it. They want somebody's a real dude stands in front and say, yeah, I've been humbled the last 3 years. But I got a lot of talent and I got a lot of ability, and I'm excited to get to work with Sean Payton to make this career trend in the right direction. I think that's what's going to happen.
Now, you don't think obviously quarterbacks can be broken? Some just don't get that second opportunity. Look at the Jets before Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, who they took 3rd overall. Shipped him out. Now he's living in Backupville, just waiting for a spot too. It's crazy, like all the situations there. I happen to think that's fascinating. Again, I'd like to talk to Grimes about that too. But yeah, that's an interesting deal, man, with Zach Wilson. You think So you are in the Denver media. You're talking about this on the radio all the time. So, I mean, legit, like he's going to come in there and it's probably going to be Wilson versus Stidham in August. I mean, they have to draft somebody, do they? If so, when? I mean, do they wait for post June 1st cuts and try to get a veteran there? You think this is what they're doing?
I think they're going to end up drafting in the mid rounds. I do think if Bo Nix is available in the second round, I could see the Denver Broncos getting into that second round. They don't currently have a second round pick because do you know what happened to that second round pick in this coming 2024 draft? Do you know where it went?
It's not my Seahawks anymore.
It went to the New Orleans Saints for Sean Payton, which is certainly a controversial subject here in Denver. Did you see the Denver Broncos jerseys, the big jersey reveal that happened in the last 2 days? Did you like them or did you hate them? Were you kind of indifferent about them?
I thought they raided UTSA's wardrobe. It's the damn Road Runners, man. They raided UTSA.
There's some UTEP vibes.
Yeah,
there's definitely some UTEP vibes as well. What's funny is I absolutely couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand him when I first saw him, and then I've seen like actually players in them, and I think they're gonna end up looking really sharp on a game day.
Nice, man. Nice.
But I'll say this: there was at the Nuggets game last night, which by the way was an absolute one of the best games I've ever seen.
You were at the Murray buzzer beater last night.
I was at game 1. I watched game 2, but I guess somebody yesterday was the jersey reveal at 9 a.m. and then the Broncos shop at Empower Field. They already had the jerseys for sale. So somebody wore a Patrick Surtain jersey, brand new, fresh off the shelves, to the Denver Nuggets game, and it looks absolutely horrific on a fan. It looks terrible. It looks like a knockoff Chargers, but with orange on it. It just wasn't the jam. So, you there, Johnny? Did I lose you?
Where's he going? Why is he waving by? His mom needs him. His mixer died. His power's out.
Well,
he's gone.
When you have so much
final episode of Ball Talk, he can't talk.
When you have so much heat on Ball Talk, the only thing that can extinguish this flame is a failed Zoom P5 podcast creator. And here we are, man. And so wrapping up Ball Talk, Spring Edition, Volume 6. It's been an awesome journey. Johnny, you look good. You look like you're taking care of yourself, man. By the time that Ball Talk Fall Edition rolls around, we're going to have even more heat, and we're going to have chiseled bodies. You're going to take that skinny body right there, and you're going to throw some muscles on it, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. So, BJ, appreciate you.
Yes,
appreciate you for giving us the time. That's Ball Talk. Season 2, Spring Season 1, Episode 6. Love you. See you soon. Go Broncos.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your spring, and we'll get both these guys back in August for the return. We still need to get Grant Hedrick on at one of these times, Mike. We got to get some of these former quarterbacks on at some point here in the future. But
PJ doesn't understand that when I mic I got
to end it. Okay, do it again. Do it again.
Hey, Ball Talk Spring Edition. That's a wrap. We'll see you in the fall. Go Broncos.